Right. Now we are going to look at the meaning of the word diction in the literary context. So, in fact, diction in a literary context would mean a writer or a speaker's distinctive vocabulary choices and style of expression in a literary text. So, in a poem or a story or a play, the kind of vocabulary which the writer or the speaker uses. Now, again, we need to go back to Aristotle to see where the idea of diction comes from. So, Aristotle, in his work, The Poetics, states that diction comprises 8 elements. He gives us 8 elements which together constitute diction. And under those elements, we have phoneme, syllable, conjunction, connective, noun, verb, inflection, and utterance. So these are the 8 subcomponents of diction. Now, diction is again usually judged with reference to the prevailing standards of proper writing and speech, which brings it again very close to the idea of decorum. If you remember, we did it in the previous terminology term which we were studying was decorum. So it is judged with reference to a prevailing standard. So it's a kind of benchmark to measure the worth and quality of writing, right? So in decorum also we saw that how the literary genre, if there's it's a particular literary genre like an epic or a tragedy, the characters, the dialogue they engage in, the language they use, the narrative style, the plot, everything has to be in accordance with the literary genre. So if it's epic, it has to be serious, the character has to be a king or a prince or royalty, and the kind of language the character uses has to be very grand, very pompous, very lofty. And similarly, if it's a farmer, then the language can be everyday language, it could be the common man's language, right? So uh, so that's decorum, and where you are observing decorum in terms of language, in terms of choice of words, it becomes diction. So in diction, you have archaic diction, which is old usage of the language. Like, for instance, in some poems or some plays, you may have seen the usage of the word thee, thou, thy. So this is old archaic diction, right? And certain words, the grammar form of certain words, like we may not have, we may not use it today. Or, for example, the phrase "thou art," which stands for "you are." So "thou art" will be archaic English or old English. So if the writer is deliberately choosing this kind of a language, one reason could be that the writer belonged to that era. The other reason could be that the writer is trying to give it an old feel, right? A particular contextual feel. Then the other kind of diction is high, lofty, like the kind of language which is used in epics and tragedies, right? And then there's the low diction, the regular everyday diction. Now, to give you to simplify this and make it more relevant for you, if you look at films also have different genres, right? So if you look at a mythological film, say it's the enactment of the Ramayana or the Mahabharata, they will not be speaking in a language which you and I speak in today, right? They will be using words like pitashri and matashri. So that's part of the archaic diction. On the other hand, if you're watching a film which is set in a city like Mumbai, the characters will use a diction which is a kind of Hindi diction which is very different from a film which is set in Lucknow, or for instance, a film that is set down south. The diction will vary. So this was just to make it simpler for you.